Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Chicago Collection Consortium's 2026 virtual annual meeting. My name is Rob Karpinski, and I'm currently the interim board chair of Chicago Collections and have the joy of working alongside Ellen, who is the executive director. I thank you for taking time to join us today. Just a few matters of business. We will be recording today's webinar, and we will be posting it on Chicago Collections website. We have a packed program this morning, so let us begin with CCC's land acknowledgement statement, which I will read at this time. Chicago Collections Consortium acknowledges and is grateful for the Native peoples who laid the foundation for the city of Chicago and for the diverse indigenous nations that reside in Chicago today. When you visit our member organizations and when you experience Chicago's outdoor spaces, we invite you to join in offering respect and gratitude to the many indigenous peoples that reside in the Chicagoland region, as well as their ancestors. Our next slide will show you the agenda for our annual meeting today. I won't go through that line by line because we want to move into our guests who are joining us today for annual meeting. I want to begin by welcoming Dario Durham and Sarah Fada from 77 Flavors, and also say that on June 14th, it was their 5th anniversary of their podcast. So happy anniversary to both of you. And thank you both for making Chicago and our history and our culture come alive. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. We really appreciate you all having us on this morning. And it's always a pleasure to talk about, like what we learned, our experience with Chicago, and how we get this education out to people.
So a little bit about us and how we kind of got started. First of all, I'm Sarah, and that's our dog Campbell whining in the background. If you hear him, sorry about that. But I am originally from Jordan. I grew up in Jordan. I moved to Illinois for college. I went to Illinois State, and then I lived in Mexico for a year or two after I graduated college. And then I've been back in Chicago since 2017. And I'll let you tell a little bit about yourself.
And contrary to where that pin is in Chicago, I am born and raised in Chicago, not in central Chicago, but I am the South Sider, born and raised here. And it was fun. It's fun to kind of jump into like how we started our journey in 2021, back in June 5th, 14th, 2021. Basically, we wanted to make sure.
No, tell the real story.
Okay, well, the real story. The real story. This is true. This is indicative of how we run the podcast and our relationship also, by the way. So
we're being very professional right now. It's a little rowdier on the podcast, but this is the vibe you get.
What she wants me to tell you is that I spent $2,700 with no job, and we had just come off of a trip that I don't know how we funded to Cancun. And the reason why I spent $2,700 is I was trying to help another podcast with the audio. And so I had no clue what I was doing. I was just like, I know we need this stuff. And so when I bought all that home and it arrived finally, I opened up the package real quick and I put on the headphones. And to me, it was the best sounding equipment that I've ever had. And probably at the time, some of the most money I spent at one time. And so I was like really happy about it. And I told Sarah, hey, put the headphones on. And, she goes, man, I sound good. We should do a podcast.
Yeah.
And that from the moment she said that, it was 15 minutes and we had the idea, name, concept all down for 77 Flavors of Chicago. And that was literally how we started the journey.
Yeah. So I think the most important piece is that Dario, like any Chicagoan, is very proud of being a Chicagoan, and he genuinely believes that Chicago is the best city. And I had been living here for a few years, and I really didn't venture out of my little bubble that I was in. And so it was kind of combining two things that we loved: Chicago history and food, because I had worked as a cook and I enjoyed food a lot. And so our plan was to visit every single one of the 77 community areas. We would kind of research the history, talk about it, and then we would eat at a restaurant in the neighborhood that's locally owned. And we thought maybe our 10 friends would listen. And our second episode, we had like 90 Instagram followers. I'm not even joking. The Chicago Tribune food editor at the time reached out and said, "Hey, is this real? Like, are you guys recording outside? It sounds really good." And I was like, "Yeah, no, we actually recorded our first episode or our second episode in front of Navy Pier, which
On the lawn.
technically not a community area. We weren't doing research the way we do now at the time, but we were sitting outside on the lawn talking about Streeterville." And he was like, are you guys open to talk? I'd love to interview you and kind of like talk about the story that you're doing. We thought maybe we would get like an Instagram post or something. And then 2 days later, Dario's a comedian. We were at Zany's doing, waiting for a comedy show. And my phone starts just like blowing up with Instagram followers. And he runs in and he was like, "Did you see that email we just got?" And I'm like, "No." And he goes, "Actually, we can go to the next slide right now because that first photo at, I'll show you in a second. We got an email from WGN Radio and they said, "We would like to have you on." And at this time, like we both have regular jobs. Well, Dario's a
Well,
comedian. I had a regular job.
I didn't have a regular job.
We had 90 Instagram followers, truly did not know what we were doing at all. And that picture right there on the bottom right is us at WGN Radio. And right before we went on, I feel like you would like to tell this part of the
Yeah,
story.
I love this part of the story. Right before that was our first media, I guess maybe technically second media after the Tribune article the night before. But we were in the studio and we were in WGN and like I'm like, oh my God, we're
Freaking out.
in WGN like radio and we got Steve Bertrand right in front of us and we were
He's a
doing
legend.
we were doing the mic checks and all that and he had his hands over the mic, and he goes, "Man, how's the last 24 hours been for you all?" And we were just like, "Oh my God, it's been crazy." He's like, "Oh my goodness." He goes, "Well, good luck. It's going to keep on getting more like that." He takes his hand off the mic and he goes, "We're live with Dario and Sarah of 77." And we
It
were like,
was
"Oh my,
it
what
was
just happened?"
mind blowing.
So that was literally our first 3 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks of our podcast. And the reason why we like to tell that story is to Sarah's point, we didn't have that big a following. We didn't know what we were doing at the time, but at at that moment, we kicked into overdrive and literally said, "Hey, we got to really take this stuff serious." The research, and from the start, we already knew if you're going to tell history about Chicago, the boo birds and all the talking birds are going to be out, and the critics are going to be out for you. And then we had all this newfound, exposure. We really had to take it serious.
Yeah.
And so from that point on, we actually, if you ever listen to the very beginning of our podcast, according to Apple right now, it starts off at episode 4. We actually took the first 3 episodes down and we redid them because we were like, oh no,
Yeah.
people can't hear that, and we want to give a better product,
Yeah.
so we redid those.
And in the beginning, we really leaned on the community organizations in the neighborhoods that we would go into because one, we weren't sure how we were going to go about the research. We actually did not know that we had access to so many free archives in the city that we could reach out to and kind of tap for information. And so, I mean, we didn't know that the Newberry Library existed. We didn't know that the University of Chicago Public Library was not public library, University of Chicago Archives and Special Collections was available. There's so many that you can actually reach out to that we just did not know. The one that actually blew my mind was the what is it? The Art Institute, that their special collections, you can actually request items. Again, really, we didn't know any of that. So most of our research was like, okay, I'll go online and see what we can find. And so we would lean on the community organizations to kind of tell the history of or the more recent history of how the neighborhoods were going or were doing. And then we would just use the Chicago Public Library for our research. We would look up books, we would look up newspapers. And the coolest thing that I first learned was the Chicago Public Library has newspaper archives. And so you could look up the Tribune archives, the Defender, the Sun Times, and all of that. And so it took us, I would say our research now feels longer because we're going more in depth. But at the time, it just felt so kind of like I was learning how to do research, even though I had done that in college, but I went to business school, so it's not really a lot of research. So we were kind of learning that process. And so over the last 5 years, we've honed that and we've learned so much. Um, but yeah, if you listen to the early episodes, there's a lot of guests on there because we looked for those experts in the fields.
And part of the reason too is we quickly understood the exposure we had and what our goal and their mission was, right? The
Mhm.
mission was to show Chicago in the best light, right? In realistic light. And also to show and to stop the narrative of, Chicago's such this scary place. So a lot of our podcasts in the beginning were on location. So we would literally sit in a park in every part of Chicago. So it didn't
Mhm.
matter. And we would have all our equipment and we would just be out there. And the unspoken word was that Chicago isn't bad. Look at us out here and everything is fine. And so that was, kind of like one step to show the people
Mhm.
that listened and follow us and anybody that was looking our way that we're actually feet to ground in these neighborhoods, not just talking about it from the couch.
Yeah.
The other thing is we really learned that Chicago history is complicated. It's not easy. And, in order to give an accurate story, you just can't check one source.
Mhm.
You can't just rely on one thing that you may see and that's the truth you run with. And we pride ourselves, I should say, on telling the most accurate story we can tell, and one that's off the beaten path of what most Chicagoans probably already know. And we want to dig deeper, and so we cross-reference a whole bunch. And if we find one lead, the if we find one thing, we'll say let's find another story that mentions this, and let's
Mhm.
find something else. And then it's almost like if you ever watch these crime mystery shows, and like 24 was really good at this. They triangulate things. We would like put all that information together and see what is some kind of basis that is the truth,
Mhm.
and that's how we kind of form our stories. So we always say now, if you hear us give an exact date, that means we know when it happened. If you
Yeah.
hear us say it was in this time or around this time, that means that it's not that we don't know, it's the answer probably isn't clear.
Mhm.
So we really learned how to use our resources and how to research. And that's kind of like
Yeah.
Sarah said, it's a personal journey that was really fun.
And I think it really validated. So I don't know if you've been on the internet, but it's not a very friendly place usually sometimes. And so when we actually didn't start posting on our Instagram and our TikTok and stuff like that until about 2 years into the podcast. We weren't doing any content at all. We were really focusing on the audio. And so when we decided to start posting, in the beginning, we would get challenged like, no, that's not true. And we were like, no, but we know that it's true. And so as we started posting more and more, we realized that including those historic images or including a newspaper clipping or adding someone's letter in the video really just adds validity to what we were saying, which was really important because our main thing is we want to be transparent with where we're getting the information. We want to be transparent with um, how we got the information, and we want to make sure that people understand that uh, it might be like Dario's running into the screen and out of the screen on Instagram and like being a little bit animated, but it's all based on hours and hours and hours, if not even more days of research that we did in order to get this most accurate piece. And I mean, I mean, I feel like that's the when we kind of really were the most well received is when people were like, okay, I see. And I would say maybe the average person, not that they don't care whether it's real or not, because people do fall for like some rage bait videos and stuff like that. You see a lot of those Chicago videos about like walking through the most dangerous neighborhood, and that always like I get like a little twinge of uh, cringe when I see those videos. And we really try our best to never kind of use those clickbait,
Those kind of
yeah,
tags
those
and
kind of tags. And so
gotcha moment.
I want people to be interested in what we're saying because it's like an interesting fact, or maybe it relates to a place they grew up. And that's been the best piece of feedback is like Chicagoans that live in other states have reached out and said, "Wow, I feel like I listen to the podcast every week because I feel like I'm at home," or it's just like and sometimes we've over the years we've filmed from our couch in our apartment, and the feedback has been like, oh, I feel like I'm sitting with friends at home on their couch, and that's like the best thing. We want to be your friendly, approachable historians that tell you facts that you might have never known, but in a way that you will remember. We actually, this just yesterday, we were at an event, and the security guard that was there recognized us, and he said, I've used your lines on so many dates, and I'm now married, and I had to come clean to my wife to tell her where I got my facts from because she thought I knew so much about Chicago history.
Yeah.
And that's
We
just
sent him an invoice too, by the way, if anybody's wondering. He's like,
but our content has also reached, I mean, our podcast has reached 85 countries, I believe. And yeah, we haven't checked in a while, but probably over 85 countries. We've even had people that have used it as an itinerary for their travels. One of our favorite stories is a woman and her daughter came from Poland for a visit, and they said normally when we've come, we've stayed like in the downtown area, but they took a bike tour through the lakefront. They went into Bronzeville. They ate in Pilsen. They went to all the neighborhoods that like people warn you. They're like, no, don't go there. Like stay in, whatever. And they're like, we've never had an experience of Chicago like this, because they would listen to the podcast, and she was like, I spent a year writing down all the places that you would mention, and we went and hit all of them. They were here for like a week and a half, and we actually met up with them, and she brought us magnets and like coasters and stuff from where they live in Poland. So it was just so special, and like it gives me goosebumps now just thinking about it, that someone on the other side of the world like heard us talk about, because when we do the podcast it feels like we're doing it in isolation, like we're just talking to each other, but to see the impact, not just in Chicago, but in other states and countries, is just so special.
I think to go back on the part about truth, right? Uh, we early on we knew that we didn't know this part, but our whole goal is to tell the truth. And then when we started telling these not so pleasant facts about Chicago, because I think a lot of people when they first join the podcast, it's going to be this rosy, happy, two people having fun. But then when you listen to it, when you listen to it, you're like, oh, they're telling actual facts. And we ran into that first when we start talking about white flight. And it's not a comfortable situation for anybody, right? You know, what I mean, nobody on either side of the aisle wants to acknowledge that the bad history, right? But we got to tell the facts. We're reporters in essence, right? We're historians. We tell the truth, and we can't deny any of it. We started getting bad reviews, and we were like, "What's going on? Like nothing changed. All we did was tell the truth." And we would go back and forth after the first. It happened three times. The first two episodes, we were like, "Did I say something? Did we say something? Is it us?" And then we caught on. I'm like, wait a minute. We mentioned white flight. We knew the next episode that was coming up, and we were like, well, we're going to talk about that subject again. And so in that episode, we started off the podcast by saying we're going to talk about white flight, and if you don't like it, we can't wait for the review. So we really went at the people, and I think it did two things. For one, it stopped those people because they knew, oh, they're paying attention. We weren't just those people that were just robots, right? We're actual functioning humans that pay attention. And then two, I think people really liked the fact that we did read the comments and that we were aware of our surroundings because that humanized us. Oftentimes we'll say we don't have a boss, like we're our boss. We don't have anybody up top that says, hey, you can't say that on air or you can't say that. So for us, it's using that to good, right? We want to tell these stories, but along those lines, we only had one episode that didn't, for us, end in a good way, right? We were talking about West Garfield Park, and if you ever been to West Garfield Park, they have this huge mural, and that it's the report card mural, and it's not fun. It's not a great stat at all. And that was one that was like emotionally it hit us a little bit because every story we try to wrap up with something that kind of uplifts, but West Garfield Park, just the disinvestment and knowing that, and so it was hard to detach that episode, and we wanted to keep it that way so people understood we got bigger problems that we still have to face here in Chicago and that we have to like move forward. So it was a lot of those things early on where we really, kind of like gained the trust of our listeners and our viewers. And that was to this day is still super important for us for people to know we do research, we tell the truth, and we try to be as factual as possible while keeping it real, and that's something that will always be at the basis of who we are, especially being a nonprofit now. That's one of our core values, and that will never change. And it's really fun to kind of bring those out and really see people's reaction now, to kind of see. And it's not about just telling the history. It's like, well, why is it like that, and what can we do about it,
Mhm.
right? And so we do a lot of panel talks and things like that, and
Yeah.
and a lot of that is to discuss, how that affects our day-to-day life and what we can do about it. So not that we just document this history, in a podcast format. Sarah and I want to be at the forefront of change. We want to be, on the streets still educating people as to why this building is important, or why that location, or why this demographic of people are important to the city, and how it helps shape us.
Yeah, and like pivoting into becoming a nonprofit last year was really, people were like, why would you do that? You already have a podcast and you make and I'm like, I think it's to drive the fact that, one, we wanted to build something that outlasts us. I don't think we wanted it to just be me and Dario making content online. We wanted it to be something that was truly, because the community supported us, the communities across the city supported us so much when we were coming up, and we wanted to find a way that we can pay that back. But our goal is to um, kind of encourage people to go out and explore the city and claim it. And we truly believe that that is just so pivotal for the stories to remain. And once you don't care about the building on the corner and you don't care about why the street is this name, I think that's when people in specific positions can retell your story for you. And that's what we tried to avoid. We're living in a very scary time when uh, stories are being, or history is being
Erased.
morphed, erased. And so um, part of what we do now is we work we work in multiple facets, but we take people into their neighborhoods to kind of learn through a walking tour about their neighborhood. We take students out into their neighborhoods to learn that there's value in those neighborhoods that they live in, that there's history to be protected, that there's places that they love that mean something. We did a presentation in Belmont Cragen, and that was one of the coolest things because it was like fifth, sixth, and seventh graders that just have lived there in that neighborhood their whole life. Their parents went to the same school that they went to, but they didn't know any of the history. And that neighborhood has so much history. It's like we couldn't even fit it into the 45-minute conversation that we were talking about. And just watching them kind of feel proud of where they live afterwards and repeating the facts to their friends. And, it's a fifth grader is 10 years old. And to think like that they had gone 10 years and have walked past these buildings all the time and didn't know what they were. And for us to come in and even do a little bit of that knowledge is so rewarding. And so that's what we are mostly working with now, taking people into the neighborhoods, taking people into neighborhoods that they've never been to before. I think the most mind-blowing thing, not mind-blowing, but eye-opening thing for us was a few years ago, we were doing an event at the Hancock Building, and Dario went on TV to kind of talk to people about the event and invite them out. And someone said, I only came because I saw someone that looked like me that was there. And I felt like this place was for me, verbatim.
Now,
And
here's the crazy thing, not to interrupt. Now, here's the crazy thing about that. It was about three people that did that, and they all said the same thing. One of them was a white guy, and you might think like he doesn't look like but to what he meant was, somebody that's like a regular person, probably
Mhm.
to my disadvantage.
I guess.
I probably look too regular, but like that really means something
I
that
said, "Oh my God, he's
yeah, yeah,
lipstick."
he's a
Yeah,
regular person. But that was really
yeah.
important when all three of them and you had all different races just come up and say that,
And one person had never been to the
never been,
Hancock, and they were
never
they were
been.
probably around
40s.
40s. Yeah,
We can tell the 40-year-olds, but
yeah.
they were all in their 40s. And that was the first time that I probably almost choked up like in public, like because of that, because it was, to me, it was a regular TV spot. And then to have it happen three times in a matter of, I think that happened in a matter of like an hour.
Yeah.
We had people say that. So that was a key moment for
Mm.
us. I was going to say also too, we like to show transparency. Another, core value of our nonprofit. We like to show the transparency. And so recently we've shown videos of us in the library and going to these different library places,
Mm.
and we even did our photo shoot
Library
in
places is
the
the
library.
scientific term for
Well,
that, yeah, in case you were wondering.
they got it. It's early. Uh, we even had our photo shoot inside Mansueto at University of Chicago, and all that just to show that research is literally
Mhm.
at the center
Yeah.
of what we do and who we are, and being able to tell truth and an accurate story. And it's all of it is intentional because we know it matters. And if somebody is watching, those kids that we were in Belmont Craig, and they stayed after and wanted our autographs, it was crazy to have that. But if we can have that kind of impact on the youth, to where they are inspired,
Right.
that look, that's a life goal right there of
Mhm.
mine.
For sure.
Also, we can go over these pictures here.
Oh yeah. I was like, what?
The bottom left picture there, that is our first ever picture of us recording the podcast.
Mhm.
We had like this little foldable table in our
In the
living
living.
room, and we thought we were onto something by using our TV as our logo as the back for the background. So we were,
That's our first ever logo. Dario made that himself.
yeah,
He gathered the little icons. It's gone now, but
it lives on in
I
heart.
hope you appreciate the new logo much, much more. The bottom middle photo is probably one of our first like NBC.
Live.
I mean, it was, I put those three photos there because it was wild to go from like clocking in and clocking out to be like, I have to take PTO because I need to go on TV. Like that was so mind blowing to me personally.
But keep in mind though, the bottom middle right there, this is still pandemic time. So
Yeah.
like, we were doing all this. Matter of fact, that was the picture is the first time we recorded the podcast. Days before, we were out and about, and it was actually the first day Chicago opened up for the pandemic during the pandemic.
In
So
yeah, June
so we were
2021.
out there. You had these two weirdos with cameras out there, actually recording what we didn't know would blow up to be this. So that's a very fun fact. But the top right corner is us inside of the Newberry Library, and I think that was our second time at the Newberry Library, and
Probably.
and we've been there. I mean, can't countless times now, but we were looking at the maps and we were finding things, and we were just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so we had the camera set up and getting that stuff. So we had a blast. We just those are some of our favorite pictures that we have down there. Very memorable moments for
Yeah.
us. But we're coming up on 30 minutes here. Didn't want to take all the time.
Yeah.
That's us. That's 77 flavors, and who we become, and what we hope to be. And I don't know if we have time for questions, but if they are, I mean, we're more than happy to talk.
We do have time for questions, and I'm going to pass it back to Rob, who can read off the Q&A.
Okay. I think the questions, Ellen, would be in the chat. Is that correct?
We don't have chat in a webinar,
Right.
so it's going to be, let's see. Oh, there's the.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Do you see it, Rob? Don't worry if you don't. I have done this for many years.
Yeah, I do not see it.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to put my hat back on and say, okay, a couple questions. I'm planning on taking my mom and sister to Chicago in a couple of weeks, and I came across something called Chicago Greeter to explore Chicago like a local. I was wondering if you partnered with them to provide additional knowledge on specific areas.
We have not.
We have not partnered with
That's
them.
cool. I will
That
be emailing them
Yeah,
though. Thank
right,
you for that
right.
lead.
But if you want to kind of create this partnership, you can use their sources and us. So
Mhm.
reach out to us. We're more than happy to kind of give you some
Yeah.
routes and where to go.
And our website it's going to continue to grow, obviously, but every week there's show notes that go with the episode. So if you don't want to listen to our episode, you can read our like newsletter, which is our show notes, as a standalone. And then at the bottom, there's always resources, extra books you can read, movies you can watch that relate to that topic. And we link all of our sources where we gathered our information from. But you can also follow us on Instagram and DM us if you're looking for a specific area or a specific topic. If you're it happens to be this weekend, we actually have a self-guided scavenger hunt through the Loop, which arguably I think is like some of the richest history in the city, and people avoid it. But it's a self-guided scavenger hunt. It's a fundraiser for our nonprofit. It's like $5.77 to play, I think. And you gather, Dario will pop up on the screen and give you a clue, and then you go and you find the clues through the neighborhood, and it's super, super fun, and you win a ton of prizes. So if it's that weekend, it could be, you could do something like that. Um,
So we've got a couple more questions. What is the role of librarians or archivists in your research?
oh my God,
Oh man.
pivotal. I
Yeah.
would say.
Point us in the right direction.
Yeah, I think when we start researching a topic, um, we'll go onto the archive, database, and we'll try to pull some resources. But I always reach out to the librarian or the whoever contact I have at the place we're going to, and ask if one, can you tell me if the resources I pulled correlate to this topic, or if you can pull more information for me. Specifically, for example, the special collections at the University of Chicago. We work very closely with Cairo there, and she has connected us with many people within the library. So librarians are always super helpful, because if they can't help you, they'll find someone that can help
Right.
you.
Mhm.
And so I'm very, we rely on them heavily. They just make our job so much easier.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, they might, like look at us, if you brand new, like, oh man, you all know everything. No, we don't know everything. We
It's
know,
hard to know
yeah,
everything.
we know a lot, over the course of 5 years. But there's people that we still ask for help
Mhm.
for, and that's how you grow. If you don't learn,
Yeah.
then you've failed in that regard.
I love that. We've got another question. Can you talk a little bit about the research process? I love that you talk
Mm,
about needing
Yeah,
additional sources, but how
yeah.
do
yeah.
you go about finding stuff, especially the hidden sources?
Mm,
All right, so we love this question just because this is where all the fun happens.
mm.
Uh, Initially, we'll have an idea, right? So we've done all 77 neighborhoods and community areas, and in those are little stories, right? So that's our first lead. You take that one
Like
story.
we see a
You-
building with a
yeah,
name on it,
you,
and we're like,
yeah.
that looks very cool. I wonder who that
And
person
you
is.
just ask the question, what is that? And so you start researching that. And then from there, it's a literal wormhole, and we'll run across different names. Well, who was this person? And you find out who that person was, and you see that they did something, and you're like, wait a minute, we talked about that before. And then we'll research and try to, based on what we've already researched, let's
Mhm.
put the two stories together. Oh, that's the same person. Oh, they were here. And
Uh,
so and so
mhm.
that's how we go about that. But a lot of times our stories, they don't the stories we tell aren't the ones we started with the research. And
Mhm.
so that's how we get our research done, is we kind of like wormhole, and we just keep asking questions until we find. Our kind of general rule is, if we find something that makes us go, oh wow, like that's the story we
Yeah.
kind of run with.
I'll give a specific example. So a few years ago, we did an episode on the typewriter, the building that is in Lincoln Park. And I was truly walking our dog, and I was like, this is a massive building, and it just says typewriter on the front. So I took a picture of it, went home, and I typed in typewriter Chicago history. That's like literally what I first do. And a bunch of things came up, and then it was Morton. The name Morton came up, and I was like, what is the connection between Morton and the typewriter? And then I found these letters. I went into the Chicago Public Library newspaper archive. I plugged in the name. I plugged in like the opening of the building, maybe articles about when the factory was being built, and eventually I reached out to Morton Arboretum, and I was like, do you have anything in your archives about Morton and the typewriter? And they said, we absolutely do. And so we went out to Morton Arboretum, and we sat with the librarian there, and she had pulled out these letters of like decades of the building being built and Morton investing in the typewriter, and like all of this stuff that was just mind blowing. Eventually, we found out that Morton was like one of the main investors of AT&T. It was just,
Yeah.
it was like, I just found that like one building, and then I reached out to a librarian, and she was like, "Yep, I got you," and just like pulled all this stuff for us. So that was a really cool one.
And you know what's even crazy about that story? And this is what's funny is we're still researching that story. And that was what, 2 years ago?
Mhm.
We're still researching that because we think that Joy Morton helped Montgomery Ward be the first place to use checks.
Right.
We think.
It was the first, well, the typewriter was the first, the hotel where you can like check in,
Yeah.
and I can't remember what this, now I'm like, I can't remember
Yeah,
exactly what the
basically
details.
they there was a system where you could pay and there was checks. And so we think
It was
in
like a
the
fax machine
yeah,
of some
yeah,
sort.
it was they were faxing over that. So we think that they have some kind of correlation. So stay tuned to 77. We're
Yeah.
still on the case. So
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I've copied this and I'm going to email it to you both and copy Chris. But this is a fabulous invite. This is from Chris Brown, the Chicago Public Library Commissioner.
Yep.
Thank you for the CPL database shout out. Would love to have you at our 82nd branch of the Chicago Public Library, the Obama branch, opening on June 19th. The
we
campus
will
has
be
a full recording studio as well, in case
Oh, wow.
I've got Chris's email. I will connect you with all of you after this meeting.
we
That
will
would
be
be
there.
amazing. Oh,
That's
that's so
awesome.
cool.
Oh,
That's so
that's so
cool.
fun. Oh my God. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. And I want to say something you said, Sarah. You mentioned that through your nonprofit, you want folks to explore the city and claim it.
Mhm.
And I wrote that down because I think for Chicago Collections, we want people to explore the city through our portal and
Mhm.
claim it,
Mhm.
claim its history.
Yep.
So our work is connected, and what you shared today makes me want to explore Chicago and
I love
understand it
that.
through your eyes. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're
Thank you
very
Oh,
so much.
thank you
grateful.
so much. Thank you. It's
You're
been an honor.
welcome. So now I think we will go back to our business portion of the meeting for CCC, and we are very appreciative of the continued support of our governing members that you see listed here. I want to also recognize CCC's partnerships with UIC in hosting CCC's Portal Manager, and DePaul University's support for hosting CCC's Executive Director, Jeannie, and now Ellen. We are very appreciative. I am very appreciative personally of DePaul University and UIC. And a special thank you to CCC's website administrator, John Zaplicki, for his continued support and help with our website and his belief in our mission. Thank you so much, John. We are also giving a big shout out to all of our members and a huge thank you for all those listed on your screen right now. Our array of participating and associate members continues to grow. It is through these diverse organizations that our work and partnerships have made an even bigger impact in sharing and preserving the rich and varied cultural history of Chicago by having these collections in a discoverable format collectively through Explore. We also thank our corporate partners. We thank them for the support, whose collections we are honored to share as part of CCC. This continues to an area of partnership we are focused on growing in the year ahead. And we welcome CCC's new members. We're excited to extend an official public welcome to this year's newest associate members, Shorefront Legacy Center and Chicago Women's History Center. We look forward to sharing these unique archival collections on Explore very soon. Thank you to both members. And we also give a shout out to our generous supporters. Chicago Collections' generous supporters has allowed our organization to not only grow responsibly and continue our mission of sharing and promoting Chicago's rich history. The continued support shown to CCC by the Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly Foundation, the Driehaus Foundation, Wintrust Bank, and the Illinois Arts Council. The state agency has been essential to our organizational well-being, and we are extremely grateful for all their support. We also recognize the early support of the Andrew H. Mellon Foundation, which funded our development of our portal. I would also like to thank the generous support of CCC's board and individual donors, many of you listening today here at our annual meeting. Thank you so much for all your support. Individual donations play a huge role in allowing CCC's resources to remain free and open to all, which is more important now than ever. And CCC's success is the result of the hard work and dedication of our members serving on our boards and our committees. Their tireless commitment and sharing of their professional skills and talents has allowed CCC to collaboratively reach our goals outlined in our strategic plan. And it is very necessary and important to acknowledge and thank Jeannie Long for your wonderful tenure as CCC's executive director. I had the privilege of working across the hall from Jeannie for 7 years, as I do now with Ellen, and I got to see firsthand the level of dedication and commitment to making CCC successful. Jeannie, enjoy your well-deserved retirement, but remember you're always a friend of CCC and never too far from me nor Ellen. Thank you, Jeannie. And many thanks to our 2025-26 board members, shown here, who this year have provided outstanding leadership and commitment to CCC. As a nonprofit organization of our size, it is very important that we have an active board of directors. You help make us successful, and Ellen and I thank you so much. With 12 engaged committees, CCC continues to be an extremely vibrant and hardworking consortium. I know Ellen is very involved with these committees and knows firsthand the importance of their work. We also recognize those who have given much service to CCC and who are stepping aside. We want to acknowledge them. Recognizing Sharon Bostic, Chair of the Development Committee, Kate Flynn, Co-Chair of the Systems Development Analysis Committee, Erin Matson, Controlled Vocabulary Committee, Renee Sato and Leora Siegel, Membership Committee, and Molly Szymanski of the Programming Committee. A big shout out and thank you to all of you for helping us remain successful. Our sincere thanks to our committees and a special thanks to our committee chairs for the sharing of their time and talent in leading our committees. The collaborative brainpower of these committees is unstoppable and has allowed CCC to continue to move forward with our initiatives this year. And Chicago Collections would like to acknowledge the passing of colleagues across our community this past year with a moment of silence. We particularly remember Autumn Mather of Loyola University, Chicago, who was the co-curator of our digital exhibit, A Snapshot of Chicago Art Fairs from 1948 to 2004. We remember Autumn. In accordance with CCC's bylaws, we will take this time now for the election of our board members. Governing members are CCC's voting members, and they have been shared the board ballot via a Google Doc. This is the time to vote.
Rob, or it'll be
Yes.
after the annual meeting because I did not pull up the ballot and send it in time.
Okay.
Here we are.
Well, no problem. Thanks, Ellen. I present CCC's board slate. Governing members will have until the close of the meeting to submit their response. Thank you. Now let's move on to the recap of our year and what a year it has been. Our year in review. There is no denying that 2025-26 was a challenging year, but CCC stayed its course by being focused on its mission and strategic plan and being fueled by the collaborative power of our committee members and member reps. It has been another robust year in programming for CCC. The variety of CCC's incredible programming has continued with the free offering of 10 public programs, attracting attendees from all over. CCC remains proud and thankful to partner with organizations like the Caxton Club and the Chicago Public Library in helping to facilitate joint programs. Here's a quick glance back at CCC's programs, and please remember that a good portion of CCC's programming is recorded and available on our event page, on the event page of our website, and on the CCC's YouTube channel. CCC hosted a Zoom webinar with the author of Blue Island, Jason Berry. Blue Island was one of the earliest communities in northeastern Illinois. This hardworking town was connected to the American economy through its rivers, canals, and railroads, including the Rock Island Railroad shops. Its brickyards led the nation in production and supplied the very blocks of Chicago's rebirth after the Great Fire. CCC, in coordination with Black Research Metropolis Consortium, joined Ellen Keith, CCC's board chair and director of research, and access and chief librarian at Chicago History Museum, and now our executive director, as she engaged in discussion with Chicago's new directors. December 17th, conversation with Laura Lorenzana, corporate and family archivist at Ozinga. We learned about the history of this fourth generation family owned and operated business. January 31st showcase of the Goodman Theater's archival collection. February 19th webinar with author Dominica Pica, author of Clout City, The Rise and Fall of the Chicago Political Machine. March 14th workshop at Chicago Public Library to learn the ins and outs of conducting an oral history. March 31st discussion with Jason Nargis, the curator of the digital exhibit, The Battle of Chicago, the 1968 Democratic National Convention. April 24th webinar on the architecture of Walter Nesch with participants from the Chicago History Museum, Northwestern University, and the University of Illinois, Chicago. May 13th webinar using City Council audio archives and archives from Chicago Public Library and University of Illinois, Chicago. May 20th in-person event at the Union League Club of Chicago, co-hosted with the Caxton Club. Celebrate and meet and engage with the newly appointed Chicago Poet Laureate Mina Del Valle. CCC remains committed to supporting its member organizations through joint partnerships, but also working with like-minded organizations to help elevate their work. These collaborations have allowed CCC to reach new audiences while promoting and showcasing our members' archival collections in new communities. CCC's partnerships this year included the Caxton Club, Chicago Area Archivists, and the Black Metropolis Research Consortium. We look forward to furthering these collaborations in the years ahead. It's been another big year for promotion for CCC. Here are a few of the programs the CCC staff and colleagues were able to participate in. Please let us know if you would be interested in presenting at a conference or event on CCC's behalf. We welcome your participation. The work of CCC was presented at 5 conferences this year, so for sure CCC is on the move. We were thrilled to be on Wintrust's digital billboard in August and have a tree at O'Hare in December that I know Jeannie was very much involved in decorating. Ask Us, CCC's virtual reference desk, is supported by CCC's Cooperative Reference Committee and continues to provide the resource of answering inquiries from all over the world on Chicago-related topics. We often hear that this important work continues to make research easier and efficient for educators, writers, students, and the general public. Thank you to our Cooperative Reference Committee for their continued hard work with this resource. Member workshops continue to be a valuable benefit of membership with Chicago Collections. In addition of all sizes and budgets to the metadata hopper workshops, members of CCC hosted professional development workshops around AI and digital preservation, which provided an open discussion on how various member organizations approach these topics. These are always very informative learning sessions. Now, updates on CCC's ever-changing Explore Chicago Collections portal. Work continues on Explore as CCC continues to find new ways to create enhancements to Explore, not only for users, but for our members as well. This is a very informative slide of our users and site views and countries accessed and returning users. It shows the relevance and importance of Explore. There are Explore stats over time, important information that we see at this annual meeting each year, but shows again the importance and relevance of CCC. Our next slide talks about what's new in Explore. Let's give you a moment to look at the importance of that slide as we move on to what also is new in Explore. And then what's next as we look at 2026, 2027. Chicago Collections is committed to continue the momentum established with our programs and partnerships, especially now as funding cuts continue. We know that we are stronger together. In the next year, keep an eye out for CCC's new digital exhibits and related programs. Please know that all of CCC's digital exhibits are accompanied by a teacher's resource guide on the topic supporting grades 6 through 12. And we would be remiss to not include that we are still actively working on upgrades to our flagship project, Explore Chicago Collections, which Ellen could probably speak for a long time about. We have spent the last year engaging in the define and design phase of our Explore upgrade with American Eagle digital marketing firm to identify pathways forward that would ensure stability, security, and support for digital collections access. The Systems Development and Analysis Committee has been essential in this process, coming to the conclusion that we must migrate from our current XTF-based system to an archival management system. In 2025, the selection of Islandora platform was made after an extensive review of the platform by the Systems Development Analysis Committee. Beginning in this year, Ellen and Jessica, representing CCC, have had weekly meetings between the American Eagle team project managers, Drupal specialists to determine the design of the new Explore access layer. Conversations have also begun on implementing the replacement of metadata hopper through the Islandora platform. Designs continue by the American Eagle team include both the desktop view, but also now a mobile version. This is critical as 20% of Explore users are accessing via a mobile device. These designs have been shared with Systems Development Analysis Committee, Digital Resources and Collections Committee, and the board. The designs were included in a grant to the National Endowment for the Humanities submitted in May of this year. CCC has applied under the Collection Stewardship Grant Program for $320,000 to go toward the build of the new Explore site. The build of the new Islandora preservation layer to replace metadata hopper and towards the migration of assets out of metadata hopper and into Islandora. The latest iteration of our strategic plan concludes this year, and a new strat plan task force will be formed at the beginning of the fiscal year to draft our next plan. CCC strategic plan continues to be our roadmap for our efforts as we focus our efforts on enhancing public access and engagement with Chicago-focused collections, foster and support a strong, involved community of members and the public in sustaining and growing and continuing to grow an effective, efficient, forward-looking organization. I thank our board and our committee chairs and our members for the dedication shown in supporting these objectives. Please be on the lookout for upcoming programs for members in addition to public programs. And with the time we have remaining, I would like to share a few additional ways to get involved with CCC. If you are already a CCC member and are not already participating on a committee, we encourage you to review our committee listings on the CCC website. If you are not already connected with us on social media, please do so. This is very important to our publicity. As our followers increase on our social media channels, I thank Northwestern University's Rachel Cole for overseeing CCC's Instagram and Facebook accounts. I encourage you to share CCC's news and to stay connected. And we always welcome your questions and your suggestions. Please reach out to us on any topic at info@chicagocollections.org. As always, each year, the annual meeting is chock full of amazing information for an organization that is fueled by Ellen, by Jessica, by the board, and by active committees. We are a small but mighty group. And this annual meeting is always an opportunity to showcase the great amount of work that happens due to the committed members of CCC with Ellen at the leadership as executive director. We thank you, Ellen and I thank you, and the board thanks you for making time for us today to join this annual meeting. And we hope you have a wonderful weekend. And don't forget to share what you see on social media connected to CCC. Thanks very much.